Hey guys, it's Kevin again, and this is going to be my review for The Americans, Season 2, Episode 9, Martial Eagle. And, oh my god, this episode was probably the game changer sort of climax episode of the season, because it was really, really big, and it really was, and part of that was due to Phillip, who was very different in this episode. Usually Phillip, yes, he can get dark sometimes, but this is a new kind of dark Phillip, which I liked because I thought it was really cool to see. I also kind of liked that this episode focused a lot more on Paige and her whole religion craze, it was interesting to see what they were going to do with that, and it was definitely it was a crazy, crazy episode as a result of all of that happening. So, let's just get to it, because I thought it was a great episode. Right away, it's really intense. There's this truck arriving at this training camp driven by Phillip, and the guards check his ID and refer to him as Tom. The guard climbs in the back of the truck to inspect his cargo, but doesn't see Elizabeth hiding behind some crates. So once inside the camp, Phillip and Elizabeth separate and begin doing recon and taking pictures. They both kill a few guards, then make a beeline out of the camp. The guards open the gate, completely clueless of what just happened, and lets the truck leave without any incident. So Phillip and Elizabeth head to the woods, where they left the real truck driver tied to a tree, and realize that he died while they were gone. So Phillip thought he would survive a few days, but apparently he didn't. So I think it was that Lewis guy that they were referring to. He died, which I pretty much suspected he was gonna die. So Paige manages to convince, her mom and dad to attend her new church with her, because they're having this thing called, Youth Sunday or something like that, Teen Sunday. And Phillip appears to be drawn into the sermon, and afterwards a woman hugs Paige, introduces herself to Paige's parents, and tells them how much of a blessing she is. She wants Paige to go on a missionary trip with them, and mentions that she is making generous donations. But when Phillip and Elizabeth hear that, I was very happy, by the way, that they finally went to the church with her, because as I said, I wanted to see, what Phillip and Elizabeth's actual reaction to the church is, and we got to see that in this episode, which I was really happy about. But the thing is that Phillip and Elizabeth, they're not okay with this. They're not happy that Paige is doing this. She gets screamed for donating $600 to the church, which apparently she was saving up for a Europe trip. She wanted to go to Europe, and Phillip has this whole meltdown because Paige is rolling her eyes at him, and basically she's telling, they're like, why are you lying to us? She says, I'm not lying, and she says, why can't you just accept what I like? And, Phillip goes insane over this. I mean, this was crazy. He takes the Bible, and I just thought this was going way too far. He starts ripping page after page in the Bible, and Paige is just screaming, and, asks her how she can respect and he's like, you can respect Jesus, but not us? And I thought that was actually a really good line, because, I mean, the thing is, yes, it's good to be religious and everything, but it's not what Phillip and Elizabeth want. They don't want Paige to be religious. Probably because they didn't get to choose a religion, because, they are living this life. They never really went to church or anything, so they're not exactly happy with that. But definitely, that was just really, really big. And I was just like, whoa, Phillip, that's taking it a bit too far. Like, I understand getting upset with her about the whole thing, but ripping pages out of the Bible, which meant something to her, and then throwing the Bible, that was taking it way too far. And I mean, this is where we started to see the dark Phillip, and this is how Phillip is throughout the entire episode. I'm just gonna tell you guys. Phillip in this scene, from here, he is completely dark, completely just not a very different type of Phillip than we've been seeing, which I actually kind of liked. I like that we saw a different side of Phillip in this episode, because it really showed us that everyone has a breaking point, and, Phillip has been dark before, but I think he's starting to get darker because that was his breaking point, basically. So Phillip reveals to Fred that the propeller plans that he stole were fake and over 100 Soviet soldiers died because of them. And then another really harsh scene with Paige. As I said, I love that they focus a lot on Paige in this episode because it really just, she was the person that pushed them to their breaking point. And I just thought that was really well done the way they did that. Elizabeth wakes Paige up and tells her that, she's waking her up in the middle of the night, tells her to get up, and she brings her downstairs and tells her to clean the refrigerator, mop the floor, and fold the laundry in the basement. And I'm just like, what is wrong with you? You're gonna punish your child for this? And, you know, Paige is like, I can't do it all in the middle of the night. And she says, you want to be grown up and choose how you spend your money? Then you have to act like a grown-up and clean the house in the middle of the night, even though you don't want to. And basically, you know, this was really interesting. Elizabeth told her how, I didn't have an easy life, and you have it easy, Paige. I'd like to see you not have it easy for a change. What we're kind of seeing is that Phillip and Elizabeth are realizing they have spoiled their children. Now, the thing with Henry last week, and now this whole thing with Paige, it's really teaching them that they have really spoiled their children, and because of them doing that, this is why Paige is so religious crazed right now. So, you know, Elizabeth, I think, is kind of mad at herself as well, because she knows they went away all those other times, and, you know, she's upset about that and things like that. So I think it's just, I don't think it's so much that they're upset at Paige. I think it's so much that they're upset at the idea of Paige's life. They'd like to have an easier life, and they know they can't. So then Elizabeth, this is really weird. I didn't know where this was going. Elizabeth goes to an Alcohol Anonymous meeting. I didn't know why she was there or what she was doing there. I'm like, why are you at Alcoholics Anonymous? You don't have a drinking problem. She's listening to this woman's testimony of staying sober for about 2 years. And after the meeting, Elizabeth meets with a woman that has been sober for 2 years. And they're bonding over their stories of recovery. And the woman reveals that she works on an assembly line for a company called Northup, and it's super high security because they do government jobs. So I don't know what this is leading to, but that scene was really interesting. I don't know where that is exactly going. However, it was just really interesting to see, you know, Elizabeth go to Alcoholics Anonymous. Again, I don't know where that's going, but it's definitely going to be interesting. So then, Martha's back at home, and she sees, you know, Clark, you know, Phillip, sitting in her living room. And she's concerned that he's drinking because he never drinks. She knows something's wrong. And still, even though Phillip, you know, even though Phillip's acting, still, Clark is still very, very dark. I said the whole episode, you know, Phillip's really dark, and it continues when he's Clark. And Clark says that he wishes he could be more honest with her about his job. Martha says it is okay that he has moods, and she loves all of him. Clark insists that the world is an ugly place full of cruel people. Then he plays a recording she gave from Gad's office, because she had gone to Gad's office before to give, you know, Stan something, which I will talk about. But Martha is scared for Gad and feels sorry for him. Clark tells her that Gad is not her friend, and then plays a recording of Gad talking about how ugly Martha is. She's clearly hurt. Clark pours her a drink, and she cries. He comforts her and tells her that he loves the way she looks. Clark informs Martha that he thinks there's a leak in her office, that there's leaking information about a stealth program, and Martha wants to help him find the leak. So, you know, it seems like they're going to work on this together. And then the very end of the episode was pretty terrifying, because Phillip had already killed a lot of people. He killed a lot of people, and, you know, he killed that guy in the truck and everything. So, when he put on these black gloves to go to the church, I thought he was going to kill the preacher. I thought he was going to kill the preacher, and, that's what it looks like he was going to do. It looked like he was going to kill the preacher, and, he ended up not killing, you know, I didn't know what was going to happen here. Because he walks into Paige's church in the middle of the night, and I'm just like, oh shit, is he just going to, like, kill the preacher? Because Phillip was, like, on a killing spree in this episode. It was insane. And Phillip was just way out of line with this whole episode. So I didn't know if he was going to kill a preacher or whatever. He actually finds the preacher in the middle of the night, and the preacher is surprised to see him. And Phillip tells the preacher he wants him to stay away from Paige, basically. And the preacher's shocked. He's like, you want her to stay away from the church? that's not what you're supposed to do. You can't just turn Paige away from the church. And he tells Phillip the best thing he can do for Paige is find a way to deal with his anger. And you know what? I think the preacher's actually kind of right here. You know, Phillip has a lot of anger built up in him, and as a result, they're taking it out on their daughter. And that's the thing. He can't take it out on his daughter, and he needs to find some sort of release from it all. And I think that's what the priest is telling him, is that he needs to be some sort of release. And Phillip turns around, walks out of the church without, and he tells him that the priest tells him that there's grace and forgiveness for everyone. And, you know, Phillip says, do you believe that? And the preacher says, I do. So, you know, that's a pretty big thing. And Phillip then just walks out of the church without doing anything to the preacher. So, I was happy he didn't kill the preacher, because if he would have, I think it would have completely changed Phillip's character. But as I said, very, very dark side of Phillip in this episode. You know, I don't know why he got so dark. I think it's part of what the preacher said, is that, you know, he has so much anger in him that they're starting to take it out on their daughter. But either way, that whole plot was absolutely amazing. I loved the whole Paige plot in this episode, and the going into the Phillip plot. I thought it was just really, really strong. Some of the best scenes were in the episode. And Matthew Rhee's performance, this is probably his best performance of the season, just because of how good he was. So yeah, that was Phillip and Elizabeth's plot. Phillip, Elizabeth, and Paige's plot, actually. So let's go to Stan, who did a lot of interesting stuff in this episode, and especially the ending. I was really surprised by the ending. Stan meets with a group of men discussing a top-secret project, Harvey, administered by the Department of Defense. The men are skeptical about how Stan has landed meeting with them. He wants to know about Project Harvey, which I guess was like an organization of some sort in real life. I don't know too much about Project Harvey. One of the men states they specialize in stealth and helping submarines and planes move below the radar. And he asks the man if Anton is the key to their project. The man reassures them that the Soviets will have to kidnap a hell of a lot of people to get enough information to piece together Project Harvey. So, Stan enlists the assistance of Martha. As you know, Martha and Clark had that conversation in the beginning, so you knew this, but he insists, you know, Martha, and he wants her to get information on everyone who attended a meeting for Project Harvey in Virginia. And military companies were bidding on the project to see who would be developing it. So, Phillip meets with Fred, who had just met with Phillip, and he received an emergency call from him. He didn't do anything about it, though. Phillip meets with Fred and reveals that the FBI called him and wants to meet with him tomorrow in D.C. And he tells Phillip, not to worry about it, Oh, by the way, that's Phillip that met with Fred. Sorry, I forgot to talk about that. I forgot to talk about that whole thing, but, oh yeah, I did talk about that. So Agent Gab pays Arcady a visit. This is really interesting. He tells him that he's in a lot of trouble because of the murder and threatens Arcady if he winds up losing his job or going to jail, he will release Frank Peterson's testimony after being tortured by 2 Soviets and heads will roll. And Arcady does not look threatened here. He kind of looks like, I know what's going to happen. Nothing bad's going to happen to me because I know what's going to happen to all of us. And there's nothing you can say or do to threaten me. That's kind of what it looked like, in his head that Arcady was thinking because he didn't seem threatened by this. And I think that's kind of what he was thinking. So Stan begins meeting with men that could potentially kidnap the Soviets, that could potentially be kidnapped by the Soviets, because the Soviets are kidnapping people now. And, it's all about Project Harvey. He preps them on the danger there and how to protect them from the Soviets. Fred is one of the men he meets with. Stan informs that he is vulnerable to the Soviets, and Stan swears he would betray his country. So Martha hands over a box of files to Stan regarding the murders of Emmet and his family. Stan thinks there's a chance they could be related to the murder that Gad is going down for. So now Stan is starting to track, Leann and Emmet. So I'm wondering if Stan is actually going to find out who did it before Phillip and Elizabeth did. Because they didn't even talk about that in this episode, Phillip and Elizabeth. The very end of the episode, though, I don't know what's going to happen here. I was very shocked to see what happened here. By the way, there was no Nina in the episode. There was no Nina. There was no Oleg. I mean, it was basically very different for Stan in this episode. Stan arrives home from work and finds Sandra packing her bags, and he's just wondering where she's going. And she says she's going away with a man she met for a few days. They have an emotional connection for a while, and they want to see if it is something more. And basically, she is telling him right in his face that she is going to have an affair with this guy. And he is shocked to see that. And she also points out that he knows he's been having one for months with Nina. He's even more shocked that she knows about this. So she says she isn't going to sit around and wait for him to get the courage to leave her. So I'm pretty much thinking that somebody told her about him and Nina. I don't know who told her, but somehow she knows. And if you remember, she was ready to leave Stan last year because of this, but she didn't, and she's not just going to sit around and wait for him to leave her. So that was basically the episode, and as I said, it was absolutely amazing. I loved everything about this episode, and some of the things I loved is Dark Phillip. I really like seeing Dark Phillip because it was a very different side of Phillip. It's something we haven't really seen before with Phillip. You know, Phillip is usually dark and everything, but this episode he was just extra, extra dark, and there were a lot of layers to his character in this episode. Kind of makes me wonder if they're starting to portray Elizabeth and Phillip as villains. You know, we're actually supposed to be against them at this point, which I think we are, because the Soviets are kidnapping people, and I think we're supposed to be against them. I think we're, at this point, they want us to root for Stan. As much as everyone thinks Stan is the bad guy here, they want us to root for Stan because they want us to turn against Phillip and Elizabeth. Elizabeth was not so bad, but Phillip was just, he was way out of line. Ripping pages out of the Bible. And also, you know, Elizabeth making Paige do those chores. That was actually a good lesson, I think. But I'm wondering where the whole Elizabeth meeting up with that one girl from Winthrop, I think it was called. What was it called? Northup, and you know, the supervised security. I'm wondering where that's gonna go to. I'm wondering if they're gonna investigate that next week. But again, this episode was amazing. I loved everything about it. And again, thoughts on the episode. This is the best episode of the season. Just really, really intense, and just such a great episode. I think it was like 10 times better than the last one. The last one was great, but this one was like 10 times better. They really stepped it up in this episode, and I loved everything about it. That's it for my review. I hope you enjoyed. Let me know what you guys saw this episode. What do you think of Dark Phillip? Where do you think that's going to go? Did you think Phillip was going to kill the preacher? I really thought he was. Do you think Phillip's going to kill someone else? I think he will. Who told Sandra about Stan and Nina? Who told her about that? And also, what's going to happen with Elizabeth and this Northup? Is she going to go to it? I don't know. But that's it for my review. I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you guys in my next video, which will be my review for tonight's episode of The Vampire Diaries. So see you then. Bye.